This week in sci-fi, we've got our eye on Space Force is back. Can they turn things around this season? Who let the dinosaurs out? Jurassic mayhem on its way. Something completely different for the Ion Awards this week. And some old favourites returning to screens. Welcome to Ion Sci-Fi, I'm Raymond Fedora. Season 2 of Space Force hits Netflix this week. Steve Carell co-created and stars in this comedy which follows the exploits of the newest branch of the US military as it struggles to deliver on a presidential order to put boots on the moon by 2024. Season 1 offered plenty of challenges for the Space Force, and Season 2 picks up after a disastrous lunar encounter with the Chinese. Carell's character is given just months to turn things around or lose his command. Despite a stellar cast, the show got mixed reviews from critics, so Season 2 may also be a last chance to turn things around. Space Force will be available on Netflix from February 18. The dinosaurs are back, with Universal releasing a trailer for Jurassic World Dominion. At the end of the previous film, dinosaurs got loose, and this film picks up a few years after that, with prehistoric reptiles apparently everywhere. Chris Pratt is back, and Laura Dern and Sam Neill are reprising their roles from the earlier films. Jurassic World Dominion releases in Australian cinemas on June 9. Disney has announced a release date for Star Wars miniseries Obi-Wan Kenobi. The series begins with Obi-Wan watching over Luke Skywalker on Tatooine, 10 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. Ewan McGregor is back in the lead role along with Hayden Christensen and Joel Edgerton. Obi-Wan Kenobi will be available on Disney Plus on May 25. Sony are developing a superhero movie based on 90s Indian TV character Shaktimaan, a Superman-style hero of the people. Sony is planning a trilogy of films for global release, and although they have a mixed track record in the genre with recent Spider-Man movies, this looks interesting. We'll keep an eye on developments. Good news, everyone! Hulu is reviving animated sci-fi comedy classic Futurama. The animated sci-fi comedy series from Simpsons creator Matt Groening ran for 8 seasons, but was cancelled twice, by Fox in 2003 and Comedy Central in 2013. All of the original voice cast have agreed to return through a deal with John DiMaggio. The voice of Bender is still being finalised. 20 episodes have been ordered for a 2023 premiere. NBC have selected Helen Shaver to direct a pilot for a Quantum Leap revival. The original series ran for 8 seasons during the early 90s, and the revival will be set 30 years later with a new cast, although there's some chatter that Scott Bakula could make an appearance in some form. Shaver has directed episodes of Snowpiercer, Westworld, Travelers, and Stargate, so has plenty of sci-fi experience. But this is just a pilot, so it will have to be a good one before we see a new series of Quantum Leap. Dune is well represented in this year's Oscar nominations, securing a total of 10, including Best Picture. But the sci-fi epic missed out on nominations for directing and acting. Dune has strong competition for Best Visual Effects, vying against Spider-Man No Way Home and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Don't Look Up is also nominated in a number of categories, including Best Picture. So it may be a strong night for sci-fi. The 94th Academy Awards will be presented on March 27. Sci-fi is well represented at the Raspberry Awards, with Worst Picture nominations going to Space Jam: A New Legacy and Infinite. Despite a biggish name cast, including Mark Wahlberg, Infinite has not been well received by critics or audiences, described as an initially intriguing sci-fi thriller that quickly veers into incoherence. Razzie winners will be announced the day before the Oscars on March 26. And voting continues for the Ion Sci-Fi Screen Awards, and this week the category is a bit different. It's for Best Character, which means that a sci-fi character is nominated rather than the actor playing them. So it would be Captain Kirk nominated in this category rather than William Shatner, for example. The award recognizes the development, writing, and portrayal of the character, so the actor is still important, but this category also includes CGI characters and inanimate objects. And the nominations are GROGU from The Mandalorian, Brother Dawn, Day and Dusk from The Foundation, Sylvia Tilly from Star Trek Discovery, YELENA Belova from Black Widow, and Jeff the Android from Finch. And you can vote now at ionsci-fi.com. Joining me now for an update on the Ion Awards is Awards Committee Chairperson Matt Moran. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Raymond.
So I'd love to talk about and find out more about the Ion Sci-Fi Screen Awards and why they were created.
With the award season coming up, people could wonder, well, why another one? There's already plenty of awards that we're just sick of them. But we felt it was important that sci-fi was recognised, and so the focus of the Ion Sci-Fi Awards is unsurprisingly on sci-fi, although it's that kind of unique definition of sci-fi that we have here, which is quite a broad definition. And so we also include the superhero genres, we include a bit of fantasy as well. It's kind of what we think our audience would be interested in and what we're interested in. And we also felt it was important that the other part of Ion Sci-Fi's mission is to give an Australian perspective on sci-fi as well.
And one of the other unique things about the Ion Sci-Fi Screen Awards are the categories. I know that we've already gone through two and we've just talked about a third today, but could you tell us a bit more about them?
Yeah, so with the categories, there's a couple of things we wanted to do with the categories, and the first was to simplify it. We don't have a 4-hour telecast in order to be able to present the awards. And so we don't have all of the individual categories and all of the individual craft awards and everything like that. And those are still important, don't get me wrong, but at this stage, we just wanted to focus on the acting and the production, and then the films and series themselves. And so what we've done is we've kind of compressed the categories down into two broad streams. You have film and you have television, because those are two quite different beasts. And then within those we have the acting for film and TV. And even there with the actors, there's no actor or an actress category, it's just actor. TV and film categories tend to be very broad as well. So film includes features and shorts, and television includes series, miniseries, made for TV, movie, that sort of thing. And both categories include live action and animation as well. So, there's plenty to choose from in there. And then we have a special category, which was today's category that you announced the nominations for earlier, which is Best Character. This category is broader. It's designed not just, it's about the portrayal, but it's also about the writing and the development of the character as well. And then how that character resonates with audiences. And so that the writing and development may not be just within the production that it's nominated for. It could be based on the writing and development that has gone into that character from whatever the source material was that production was based on, whether it's a comic book or a novel or something like that as well. And so it's a unique category to the Ion Sci-Fi Awards, and it was one that we felt was an important one to add, even though we were trimming categories or compressing categories down to give us broad coverage. We wanted to include that additional category as well for sci-fi.
And I really love this category because it really does widen the scope and, things that you would never imagine would be up for nomination are up for nomination. So we'll talk about that a bit more later. But could you tell us a bit now about the judging panel for the Ion Sci-Fi Awards?
Yes, so we have an expert panel of judges, and the panel has been responsible for the nominations that we're seeing so far. And then they will also take part in the voting along with the audience later on. And so the panel is made up of Simon Foster, who is the Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival director. And then we have Christian Baines, who is our North American correspondent. Now, he's been on the show a few times, and he gives us the behind the scenes, as you were, or because he's closer to the action, or much closer to the action than we are. He sees things as they're happening in the North American market. And then the other member of the panel is the Ion Sci-Fi editorial team collectively.
So once the nominations are out, people have to vote. So how does voting work?
That's exactly right. And so every week we announce the nominations for a new category, and we put a poll up to allow the audience to vote on their choice from that category. And what we'll do then is we will combine the audience vote for that category with the expert panel's vote from that category. They will both have equal weight. We will combine those to decide who wins that category. And then at the end of this current run, we will have a special show which is dedicated to announcing the winners of each category.
Now, before we move on, I'd love to just quickly run through this week's nominees for the category for Best Character. And the first one, that, as we mentioned, was GROGU, the child from The Mandalorian. So that character is not actually there's no actor there. So yeah, tell us about that character.
And that's exactly right. And so that's a great example of exactly the sort of thing that we were trying to capture with this category. There is no actor there. I think it's CGI.
Mix of it.
Yeah, or a mix, that's right. Yeah. There's no one inside a baby suit there, obviously. And see, that character didn't really have much in the way of scripted lines either. No. But the character still communicated. And so the strength of that portrayal is obviously down to the writing and the presentation of the character. That's a great example of what we were trying to capture with this category. And then another nominee in the character, which is Jeff, the android from Finch. That's a CGI character, but it's driven by motion capture from an actual actor, and that actor also voiced the character as well. And so that's an interesting in-between one, where obviously the actor was also responsible for the portrayal in a big way, but never actually appeared on screen. And then you have some more traditional characters. The Black Widow character is a great example because the character is nominated this week in the Best Character nominees, and then Florence Pugh, who was the actress who played the character, is nominated in Best Actor Film as well. And so her portrayal is obviously responsible for the appeal of that character, but she's also being recognised purely for her acting in that other category as well.
And then there is also, interestingly, a character from Foundation, Brother Dawn, Day, and Dusk. So how does that work if there's...
Yeah, so that is an interesting one, and that's another example of why we wanted this category, because it's science fiction, and it's the nature of science fiction to throw these kinds of things up. This one is interesting because it's 3 actors playing 3 different people. It's 3 clones of the Emperor Cleon at different stages of life development. And then the central character, Day, is the one who has, all of the authority and control, but he relies on the wisdom of the older Dusk and the youthful exuberance or whatever, and at the same time, Brother Dawn is learning the ropes in order to be able to step into the... So that's a fascinating one. It's an interesting one as well because that was something they developed for the TV series. It was never in the books. And now I've been known to pontificate about some of the liberties they've taken with developing the TV series. Yes, not all of which I agree with, although I do have some sympathy for all of them because those books are renowned for being very difficult to turn into television or film or screen. But that was one innovation which I thought was particularly appropriate and worked really well, and then that's shown in its nomination in this category as well. It's a great example that the 3 of them collectively represent empire, the emperor, because that function, that office, and so that's how you could argue they were one character rather than picking out an individual one. You might pick out an individual actor and then nominate them in the actor category, but for a character, the 3 of them are the character.
So all that's left to do really is to keep voting in the categories and then look forward to the awards presentation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, the categories go out one by one. Now, if the audience has missed a category, because we put one up a week, a little later on, we will be putting all of the categories up on a separate page so that anyone who's missed voting in a particular week can go back and catch up and vote in their category. So we'll do that. And then in a few weeks' time, we've got the big categories coming up now. So the next one will be Best Production. Film and TV. That is an interesting take. We think it's an interesting take. Rather than have Best Director for film, you recognise that the director is responsible for the creative vision of a film and its delivery. But in television, for example, it tends to be more down to the producers, the showrunners, the writers, and those kinds of things as well. And so what we wanted to do was to try and align them a bit better and to recognize the broader team that were responsible for delivering in both of those in film and in TV.
Well, I cannot wait. So thank you so much for for coming up with the awards, and thanks, Matt. And that was the week in sci-fi. For more news and to vote in this week's category, go to ionsci-fi.com.